Have you ever felt invisible? Have you ever had the feeling that no one truly listens to you, that your opinions go in one ear and out the other? That no matter how much you speak, your boundaries are ignored, your desires ridiculed, your presence discarded? Well, know this. It doesn't happen by chance. There is a reason. And it is more uncomfortable than you would like to admit. The world does not respect those who do not assert themselves. The world does not listen to those who do not know what they are saying. The world does not value those who live trying to please. As long as you do not build a solid internal structure, moral, emotional, and strategic, you will continue to be an easy target. A disposable piece. Someone who lives at the mercy of others' judgment, always reacting, always chasing, always molding themselves to fit into others' molds. And do you know what Machiavelli would say about this? That you are doomed to irrelevance. It is much safer to be feared than loved when one has to choose between the two. This phrase can be interpreted in various ways, and one of them is as a warning, an uncomfortable truth. The image of strength generates respect. The image of weakness attracts contempt. And you can try to deceive yourself as much as you want. You can say you are kind, understanding, empathetic. But if behind all that is the fear of asserting yourself, the truth is that you are merely disguising your fragility. And the world notices. Do you know why people ignore your boundaries? Because you ignore them yourself. Do you know why no one takes your words seriously? Because they do not come from a firm place. They come from an anxious mouth, an insecure soul, a body that trembles in the face of conflict. And there is no speech that can convince when the posture betrays weakness. Do you want respect? Then understand this. Respect begins when you decide to stop being fragile. When you stop acting like a decaying republic, chaotic inside, trying to maintain the appearance of order on the outside. Machiavelli wrote in the Discourses on the first decade of Titus Livius, "A republic that becomes corrupted, and where internal discipline deteriorates, cannot sustain itself, even with good laws." Now apply this to yourself. It doesn't matter how many books you read, how many external rules you try to follow. If your internal foundation is compromised, if your emotions control you, if you act on impulse, if your values change with the wind, you will crumble. The question I have for you is simple. How long will you accept being seen as someone weak? How long will you swallow disrespect in silence, pretending everything is fine? How long will you live with that choked voice, that evasive gaze, that body that shrinks whenever it needs to assert itself? Enough. If you clicked on this video, it's because on some level, you've already realized something needs to change. You are tired of living in this state of emotional submission, tired of feeling that others have more control over your life than you do. This video is not about how to appear strong, it's about how to become strong. Because true respect is not imposed with shouts or masks. It arises from self-mastery. So be prepared. Nothing you will hear here is light. This is not Instagram motivation. This is raw psychology, sharp philosophy. It's Machiavelli telling you through history that the world is a battlefield, and that if you do not learn to fight internally, you will continue to be just another servant of your own fragility. From now on, you have two choices. Either you continue as you are, ignored, unstable, irrelevant, or you start to rebuild your inner power. But understand, no one will do this for you. Look around. The people who command respect, who speak and are immediately heard, who enter a room and change the atmosphere, they didn't get there by chance. It wasn't luck. It's not because they are more liked than you. It's because they are more respected. And respect is not a gift that is given, it is a reflection. A reflection of what? Of internal structure, of emotional control, of moral clarity. And if you don't have that, the world notices. Just as the smell of blood attracts sharks, weakness, the true kind, the one that resides within, attracts only one thing: destruction. The problem is not that people are cruel. The problem is that life tests structures all the time. And if yours is cracked, it will give way. When you live emotionally disorganized, when you react to everything with impulsiveness, when your decisions contradict each other, when you say one thing and do another, the world interprets this exactly as it is: internal chaos. And Machiavelli already said, in the discourses on the first decade of Titus Livius, that no republic, no matter how good its laws, survives when it loses internal discipline. With the individual, it's the same. You may even have good ideas. You may want to be a better person, more assertive, more present. But if your conduct does not support this with coherence, with direction, with firmness, no one will take you seriously. Because respect is not asked for, not demanded, not begged for. Respect is imposed with presence, and those who do not respect themselves try to compensate with words, with favors, with excuses. But the truth escapes in gestures. It's in the hesitation when speaking, in the gaze that avoids confrontation, in the body that shrinks back when it needs to assert itself. Every small omission, every no you swallow, every boundary you let be crossed, all of this communicates something. And what it communicates is, I am weak. And understand this well. The world, and in this Machiavelli was brutally clear, has no mercy for the unstable. Life does not protect the fragile. On the contrary, it pushes them further down. Existence respects those who are solid, those who have a center, those who know what they want, what they tolerate, and above all, who know who they are. The rest is forgotten, erased. Do you feel like no one listens to you, that your opinions are ignored, that your presence has no weight? This is not bad luck. This is a reflection of an internal structure that you have not yet built. And as long as that doesn't change within, nothing changes outside. Life gives you exactly what you tolerate. No more, no less. But there is a way, and it starts with a radical decision: to interrupt the collapse. To stop everything, look inward and admit, without escape, without victimhood, without a mask, I am weak and no one is going to save me from this. From that point, something new is born. A process, a rebirth, the reconstruction of oneself. And this reconstruction begins with a force that Machiavelli called Vertu. It is this force that separates common men from the respected. And that is what we are going to talk about now. If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. Vertu. A simple word but loaded with weight. Machiavelli used it with surgical precision. For him, Vertu was not about being good, docile, or morally correct. No. Vertu was something else. It was the ability to impose oneself on chaos, to shape reality to one's own will, to act decisively in the face of uncertainty. It was the essence of inner strength, the strength that builds empires, that earns respect, that sustains power. And it is this same strength that is lacking in the life of those who live being ignored. You may have good intentions, you may be polite, well-articulated, even intelligent. But if you lack Vertu, you will be seen as harmless. And no one respects the harmless. People may even like you, but they do not follow you. They hear you, but they do not listen to you. They tolerate you, but they do not consider you. Because presence is lacking. Density is lacking. That energy that makes others think twice before crossing your boundary is missing. Vertu is that. It is real presence. It is clarity of intention. It is a firm stance, even in silence. It is the ability to choose the right action at the right time without needing to justify every step. It is the courage to stand by your choices even when the whole world disagrees. It is taking command of your own life and no longer living as a puppet reacting to the movements of others. And this strength does not come from nothing. It is built, brick by brick, decision by decision. Every time you say no when you mean no, you strengthen your Vertu. Every time you act with coherence, even amidst chaos, you strengthen your Vertu. Every time you assert yourself without needing to raise your voice, you show the world that there is structure, that there is density, that there is someone there who knows exactly who they are. In Chapter 6 of The Prince, Machiavelli states, "A prince who does not possess Vertu cannot maintain power for long." This applies to kings, yes, but it applies even more to you. Because the power you want to maintain is yours. Control over your life, your choices, your values. And without Vertu, that power slips through your fingers. Vertu is also strategic intelligence. It is knowing when to act, when to wait, when to attack, and when to retreat. It is acting with intention, not impulse. It is leading, not just reacting. And this is the difference between those who are respected and those who are forgotten. The former build their Vertu with discipline. The latter live waiting for the world to treat them well just because they are good people. But beware, Vertu is not arrogance. It is not rudeness. It is not empty aggression. It is mastery. It is internal command. It is a silent authority that emanates from those who are aligned with themselves. And when this energy manifests, respect happens naturally, effortlessly, without begging for attention, without needing to justify oneself. Now I ask you, what have you done to strengthen your Vertu? How are you building this internal structure? Or are you just surviving, waiting for the world to change before you change? The truth is one. Without Vertu, you will continue to be pushed around by life. But with Vertu, you begin to shape the reality around you. And this transformation has a very clear starting point. The moment you stop running away from yourself. And that is the next step. You may be intelligent, talented, and even have traits of Vertu. But as long as your emotional instability commands your decisions, you will be seen as someone weak and therefore easily ignorable. Respect does not arise from good intentions, but from the consistency between what you feel, think, and do. If the world perceives that you cannot control yourself, it also understands that it can control you. Emotional instability does not only scream in outbursts of anger or crying fits. It whispers in the details, in the fear of confrontation, in the anxiety for approval, in the difficulty of maintaining a boundary. You say you are understanding, but inside you are swallowing your truth. You say you are flexible, but you are just avoiding discomfort. And every time you do this, your image dissolves a little more. The truth is harsh. No one respects someone who lives oscillating. When your posture changes according to the environment, your word loses weight. When your mood decides for you, your authority disappears. Respect demands predictability. It demands firmness. And those who are guided by unstable emotions never convey security. Machiavelli had already made it clear. Those who do not master themselves will inevitably be dominated by others. And you feel this. You feel that you are not in control, that you are constantly being pulled by impulses, by old traumas, by unresolved wounds. And worse, you try to control everything around you because you cannot control what happens inside. Emotional balance is not about repressing feelings. It is about leading them. It is about taking the internal chaos and transforming it into direction. When you choose to act instead of react, you begin to build respect. And this construction is slow. It requires discipline. It requires clarity. But it is possible, and it is urgent. Because as long as you are emotionally unstable, your relationships, your work, your life, everything will be at the mercy of chance. Nothing solid is built on unstable ground. If you want to be respected, you need to stop fleeing from discomfort and start facing what destabilizes you. And that is where the turning point begins. Because after you confront your internal chaos, the opportunity to rebuild yourself arises. But rebuilding requires a firm foundation. And that foundation is purpose. From now on, you will understand how clarity about who you are and who you decide to become transforms everything. We will talk about this in the next part. Everything begins when you say enough. When the pain of continuing to be who you are surpasses the fear of transforming. That is the breaking point. The moment when the inner chaos can no longer be managed with distractions, excuses, or masks. From here on, you can no longer pretend. Either you take responsibility for yourself, or you accept living a fragile, superficial, and ignored life. Reconstruction is not a comfortable process. It is selective demolition. You need to look within and question everything. The habits you have normalized, the thoughts you repeat without realizing, the values you claim to have but do not practice. It is surgical work, and only those who have courage face this head-on. The rest continue blaming the world. As long as you do not know who you are, truly, you will be easily shaped by the expectations of others. You will live trying to fit in, please, belong. And every time you do that, you move away from yourself. Reconstruction demands the opposite. It demands clarity. Who are you? What do you tolerate? What do you not negotiate? What moves you, even in silence? This clarity does not arise from nowhere. It needs to be built with reflection, confrontation, and conscious choices. It is necessary to define a purpose, an axis, a principle that sustains your actions. Machiavelli said that good laws arise from good arms. Translating this to the inner life, you only create firm rules for yourself when you already carry the necessary discipline to uphold them. When you live without purpose, you live adrift. You react to the world instead of acting upon it. And that is where the root of weakness lies. Reconstruction requires you to stop responding to external stimuli and start responding to an internal voice, strong, clear, and non-negotiable. This is the foundation of real presence. It is the beginning of true respect. But reconstructing oneself is not just about understanding. It is about applying. It is about reviewing your actions daily. It is about aligning intention with behavior. And most importantly, it is about constantly reforming yourself. Just as Machiavelli said that to maintain freedom, a republic needs to review its institutions and customs, you need to do the same with yourself. Always. And this is where many fall. They think that one decision is enough to change everything. But it is not. Decision is just the beginning. What sustains transformation is consistency. And it is only possible when there is moral firmness, clarity of values, and internal discipline. In the next part, we will explore this idea in depth, how to turn principles into real weapons and make the world respond to your new presence. Because external respect is merely a reflection of your new inner empire. If what you're hearing resonates with you, you'll find real value in my ebook, Beyond the Shadow. It breaks down Jung's core ideas and gives you tools to understand yourself more deeply. Link is in the pinned comment. Now that you have decided to rebuild yourself, it is time to understand what truly protects you in the battlefield of life. It is not beautiful words. It is not sympathy. It is not talent. What protects you, and more than that, what imposes you, are the principles you cultivate with unwavering discipline. Principles are not loose ideas. They are weapons. And as Machiavelli said in The Art of War, good laws arise from good weapons. Without internal weapons, you are just another trying to survive in a world that only respects those who know how to fight. Your principles are your line of defense. They define where the other can or cannot enter. They determine how you act, even under pressure. But beware, principles are not catchy phrases that you repeat to feel good. They are conscious decisions that you apply firmly, even when it costs, even when it hurts, even when your whole body wants to flee from the situation. When you establish a principle, you are telling the world, here is my limit. And if you do not uphold that limit with action, it loses strength. Every time you yield, retreat, betray your own values to please someone, you throw away a weapon. And believe me, the world is watching, and it responds. Because respect is not built by intention, but by consistency. When people perceive that your principles are stable, that your attitudes are predictable within a coherent logic, you begin to be seen as someone trustworthy. And trust is the fertile ground where respect is born. The opposite is also true. Those who are unstable, incoherent, manipulable, are treated as disposable pieces. The question you need to ask yourself now is, what are your weapons? What principles do you uphold in silence, even when no one is watching? Do you really act according to what you say you believe? Or do you change your values according to the situation? Because a principle only becomes a weapon when you are able to defend it to the last consequences. It is at this point that many give up, because living by principles requires renunciation. You will need to give up the acceptance of some, the easy validation, the feeling of always being at peace with everyone. But what you gain in return is much more valuable. You become respected, not out of fear, not by imposition, but by the solidity that your presence conveys. And most importantly, these principles are not only for defense, they are also weapons of advancement. They allow you to act with intention in the world, without getting lost in emotional reactions or external pressures. They guide your choices with clarity, and the sharper your internal arsenal, the sharper the impact you will have. But there is one last step that needs to be taken, because it is of no use to have strong principles and consolidated virtue if you still live trying to please everyone. And this is one of the greatest traps of weakness, the desire to be accepted by all. Machiavelli had already warned us. The world respects those who know exactly who they are, not those who live adapting to others' tastes. In the next and final part, we will face this dilemma head-on. You will understand why trying to please everyone is the fastest way to lose yourself, and how true authority arises from an unwavering commitment to who you have chosen to be. There comes a time when you need to choose. Either you live trying to please everyone, or you start to be truly respected. Both at the same time are impossible, and this is one of the greatest illusions that keep intelligent, capable people with enormous potential trapped in a small life. They are afraid of displeasing, afraid of seeming harsh, afraid of being judged. So they choose the safer path, adaptation. They shape their voice, behavior, even their own identity to be accepted. However, in this process, something much more valuable is lost: respect. The world does not respect those who bow down to everything, those who change their opinion to avoid conflict, those who apologize for existing, those who lower their heads whenever they feel they are bothering someone. People like that are seen as weak, and it doesn't matter how good, polite, or empathetic they are. They will constantly be ignored, surpassed, discarded. Because respect does not come from the attempt to be loved. It comes from the courage to be who you are, even if it costs the approval of some. Machiavelli wrote, "It is much safer to be feared than loved when one has to renounce one of the two." And this is not an invitation to authoritarianism. It is a call to authenticity, to internal alignment, to live with such clarity and firmness that people, when they look at you, know exactly where they can and where they cannot tread. And this is not built by trying to please. It is built with presence, with intention, and above all, with unwavering coherence. You need to understand that every time you remain silent to avoid conflict, every time you pretend to agree to avoid being judged, every time you soften your truth to seem more acceptable, you are trading respect for crumbs of approval. And in the long run, this trade comes at a very high price: your identity. To be respected is to be clear. It is to be whole. It is to be willing to be misunderstood, to disappoint expectations, to not please. Because only those who can firmly say no, maintain a boundary in silence, and stand tall in the face of discomfort are seen as someone worth listening to, following, considering. And that is what builds authority. So stop now. Stop asking for permission to be you. Stop negotiating your worth for compliments. Stop wanting to fit into a fragile mold that you know was not made for you. Be whole, be firm, be someone who, even in silence, commands respect just by existing in coherence with their truth. If this video made sense to you, comment below. From today on, I choose respect. I want to know who is ready to stop pleasing and start building something solid. And if this content awakened something true in you, keep watching the next video. It is important. The journey continues, and the next step is essential.